Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident fanalist, as always, Ryan Schlipp. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_data. Well, I spent entirely too much time trying to decide, should I do Packernet After Dark first, or should I do the normal podcast first? And finally decided I'm going to do Packernet After Dark first, and then I got over there. 0 calls. That has never, ever been a thing before. Even on like a random Wednesday in July, there's at least a call. After a game? Wow. I will say, as much as I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm surprised nobody has any thoughts, I don't really have a lot of thoughts. I think the biggest thing that I spent time trying to figure out what to do is figure out what exactly my big takeaways are here. And honestly, I think until I get a chance to take a look at PFF, go back and watch the game again, I'm not going to have a ton of super hot takes. Look, the only thing that I know for sure when I came downstairs and said, I'm not engaging in the nonsense this week. I'm trying to promise you that. But this was the biggest nothing game in the history of the world. And I don't mean that necessarily negatively, but in terms of there can't be hot takes here. I mean, there just isn't. And what's crazy, and I know I just promised you this, but what's absolutely crazy to me is that not only are there still some hot takes, which I think is just complete insanity that anybody would have any hot takes about that, but I probably shouldn't be surprised. One of the people with a shockingly insane hot take is former Packers quarterback Kurt Benkert, who seems to be popular because, I don't know, he showed up here and was somehow able to create an image, I think because he's pretty good with social media. He kind of hyped up the fact that he took a knee and he plays video games, plays like Madden and stuff, and then he kind of tried to parlay that into like a film watching thing or whatever. I don't know what he does. But aside from that, the only other thing he's really trying to do to stay relevant, as far as the Packers are concerned, is to crap on Matt LaFleur every single opportunity he gets. He hates Matt LaFleur. Hates him. I think he's very bitter about whatever happened in Green Bay. He's very bitter about the fact that he ended up getting let go, which is not even a Matt LaFleur thing, although I'm sure he feels that he's somehow responsible. I don't know. But he will take every opportunity he can to crap all over Matt LaFleur, and it's freaking embarrassing. Preseason week 2, 0 starters. Packers won the game. A lot of people look good. Some mistakes, whatever. I don't know. I'm sitting here just shrugging my shoulders going, yeah, I mean, some people looked okay. Some people not super great. It's kind of just a question of recalibrating where I'm at with certain people, which I'm starting to feel like maybe that's what the preseason is. It's kind of like the NFL draft. Instead of the NFL draft, picture the 53-man cut down. Remember how I said it's, there's this big, long fake period where we all talk about like our prospects and who we like and how we rank this and that and diddly, and it's a whole big thing. And then there's the actual draft, and as I said, that's where we got to turn off all that stuff we've been saying before because all that was kind of fake and we're just screwing around. And now we'll find out what teams actually think and who they pick, and we can go from there. That's how I feel like this is with the 53. I'm kind of going along, going, all right, Isaiah Simmons, he's got to go. It just ain't going to work. Other guys you're looking at, like, Brooks is kind of a banger, and still like that Abanikanda guy. Wilson's a freaking freak. That guy he doesn't stop impressing ever. Fitzpatrick, you just kind of go through a little checkbox and you kind of move people up the rankings up and down a little bit. And that's about it. And you kind of, then there's the big event, which is the 53-man cutdown. And we go through and we debate sort of those bubble guys. Who's going to make it? Who's going to make the practice squad? Who's going to get cut? Do you dare releasing this person and trying to put them on the practice squad because they might get stolen. And then we have that whole big thing about, guys, we got to stop thinking everybody gets stolen. I mean, they might, but you know what I mean? Like, that's it. That's really all it is. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm going through like, oh yeah, I really like this guy. You know what? I want to see Morgan and Belton. Like, the penalties for Belton. Shucks. Not great, but I don't think he's going to start this year. So it's going to be somewhat of a redshirt year, but he looks impressive as a blocker. The pass blocking, the run blocking looks good. He's got to clean up the penalties. He'll be sitting as a backup this year. Next year he comes in. Good chance he and Morgan are starting next year. You know? We'll see about Morgan. Maybe he's starting this year. I don't know. Again, these are the things we're kind of going through and tweaking, but that's about it. Like, you know, we didn't complete like a third down because our second string quarterback threw it over the head of like our fourth string running back. And I'm sitting there going, I bet there are people out there just freaking out right now. I'm interested. Like, I like Malik and I want to see him do cool stuff. But I'm not treating this like a regular season Packer game. This, for all intents and purposes, this is not a Packers football team. This isn't the Packers. And so I come on social media, and one of the first things I see from a pretty calm social media, at least so far, is Kurt Benkert saying, I don't care that it's preseason. The product the Packers have put on the field looks disgusting. The games don't matter, but have some pride in the performance at least a little bit. And then he goes on to say, of course, I dealt with this when I was there. We played against the Jets' first-team defense for an entire half, and we were completely unprepared for their nickel-double mug package. Freaking dork. It's frustrating when you're trying to put your best foot forward and you're not giving a schematic chance. You weren't prepared for their nickel-double mug package? Again, this is why I just can't stand the whole, like, well, he played in the league, I think he would know. These guys are just human beings. That's it, right? Like, they might know where certain rooms are in Lambeau that I don't. They might know more about Matt LaFleur's playbook, at least back when he was there. There are certain specific trivia questions that he would be privy to that the rest of us are not. But players and coaches are very different. And a lot of times players end up being a lot like fans where they just expect, like Aaron Rodgers wanting to go, quote unquote, all in, just like the fans do. Players always want to go all in. They want to do all the crazy stuff. They want to get all the money. And even they, like fans a lot of times, don't understand why certain things happen. Why we're not going out and getting X, Y, and Z. Why we made this move. Why did we cut that player that was such a good player and he was so great for the locker room? And how could you do such a thing? I don't know, dude, he's 31 years old and he costs too much money and we got somebody else coming up. Yeah, but he was my brother and you don't understand how important it is for the locker room. This is why we need the division of labor. Our team would suck if players ran it. Just like in preseason. I bet if we let the Green Bay Packers players run the preseason, we would win all of our preseason games. Yes, I said win, and I meant win. I didn't mean lose. I meant win. But you know what we wouldn't get out of the preseason? Everything you're supposed to get out of the preseason. The point isn't to scheme against the nickel-double mug package. First of all, how in the world are you supposed to even know what the Jets are going to be putting out there? They're not putting stuff on tape for you to watch. You don't know what they're doing. They're going to run out on the field and put on the field what they think is beneficial for their team. They're not scheming against the Packers. They're putting plays out there for their own team. That's the point. You're not scheming against the other team. You don't know what they're doing. And even if you did, that's not the point. So unprepared for it. And again, he uses the nickel-double mug package as like an ace in the hole for check out how smart I am. Like, I have insights. I was there, and I know we weren't prepared for their nickel-double mug package. I understand that you know information. I get that. You know a lot of trivia. Your ability to process that information, though, little I don't know. Not sure I trust that as much. You know, if I want to know where the bathrooms are from the locker room, I'll be sure to hit you up. If I want to know what a nickel-double mug package is, I'll be sure to hit you up. But if I want to know how to run a preseason, I'm not asking players. Just so pathetic that would be such a thing to worry about. I mean, I don't even know what exactly he watched that made him so upset. Where was the lack of pride? I thought they played fine. Was he just like, did this just come in the first quarter when it was the 2s against the 1s and they got that one field goal? What did they have, 10 points at half? They played their starters basically the entire half. I think we had Elgersma in before the half even ended. We were down to QB 3, assuming that he is 3 now. I don't know. They put him in 3rd. We had QB 3 in. And they still had Anthony Richardson in. Granted, they kind of have 2 number 1s, so it's a little bit whatever, but still. Or 2 number 3s, depending on how you want to quantify that. I'm just saying that, you know, They're unsure who their starting quarterback is one of those two guys, and they split time between them. So the bottom line is I'm not interested in entertaining a lot of that this week. If you have some kind of a hot take, I can't do it. I mean, it's so unbelievably stupid. Last week, fine. If you want to talk about the starters and the fact that there were drops and recurring issues and, because there's some kind of a link there. Again, the whole thing is stupid. We're talking about a massively small sample size. Of course, they're not prepared. All the things I already said. But you still have starters making mistakes. You still have Packers dropping passes. You still have an unprepared football team, which are like triggers for Green Bay Packers fans, and I get that. I think it might be slightly irrational, as I already laid out, but I get that they're triggers. Oh, no, they're unprepared again. Oh, no, they're soft again. Oh, no, they're dropping again. But when you got all backups playing against starters and they were down by like 10 points at halftime, maybe they got to 13. I don't know, whatever. But they couldn't do much. I don't understand what you're even talking about at this point. I don't know how to help you. And to be honest, I think part of the reason I railed against last week is because at least there's something to grab onto. You know what I mean? Like, because there's a sliver of rationality to the outrage, I feel like I'm talking to somebody that can think a little bit. I don't know what the point of even trying to convince, because I don't know. I don't have any idea what I could possibly say. As far as I'm concerned, the Packers won, and for all the angry casuals, that's all you should care about. You got your win. Now you have to praise the Packers. That's the rules. Okay, if they lose and you get to say that means we are not going to be a good football team, then when they win, I want you saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. And if you can't be equally psychotic and hyperbolic and all that in both directions, then you're just an angry douche. But here we are. We win the game, which doesn't freaking matter. Who cares? And I got to see Kurt Benkert coming out here trying to use this as an opportunity to once again flog Matt LaFleur about something. So this week we're going to have a good week, pending injuries. There's really nothing for us to panic about. I'm very happy. I mean, one of the benefits of playing no starters, and I was kind of surprised. My son was like, yeah, they're not playing any starters. And I'm like, well, they'll play some starters, but probably just not like the most important ones. Pretty sure it was 0. But the benefit, nobody, well, we'll get into the injuries, but as far as the top guys, I knew as much as, when I saw the guys line up, one of the guys that I thought that would be a starter that would be out there would be, for example, Matthew Golden. I'm like, well, he'll play. Guess who didn't get hurt today? Matthew Golden. So, we will go through practice. Hopefully everybody stays healthy through practice. We got another joint practice, got another preseason, then we got a week for everybody that's not healthy to get healthy. And we're doing this thing. But I will do my best to honor what I said about not panicking about ridiculous hot takes this week. Why don't we take our first break? We'll come back and look at a little bit of information that we do know about this game. We'll be right back. All right, so first things first, why don't we go through some of the stats from the game. For our quarterback, Sean Clifford was just 1 for 4 for 11 yards, 2.8 yards per attempt, 39.6 passer rating. He did have the big rushing touchdown, which was fantastic and pretty big if you were obviously very interested in winning the game. But as a stat line, I'm sure you're not super thrilled with that. Algersma actually looked quite good out there, my opinion. 7 of 11, 109 yards, 9.9 yards per attempt, 32 yards was his longest. He was sacked once and had a 96.4 passer rating when targeted. Kind of an interesting dynamic. I mean, I assumed, they drafted Clifford. They seem to really like Clifford, his high IQ type stuff and all that. Algersma came in, and it was just one of those things. I mean, it's like the Irish kickers. I don't know why he's here, but whatever. He's just hanging around. Nothing's going to come of that. This is becoming something to keep an eye on. Because Jordan's number 1. Malik is going to be number 2 on the 53. I don't think there's any reason they would carry a third quarterback. It's possible they go 2 quarterbacks on the practice squad, but I don't think so. They would likely have 1. So it kind of is a competition right now. And I guess I know they like Algersma. I mean, he obviously was very impressive in a much lower level of competition, but Sean Clifford, I don't know that he's ever really shown anything. I know the whole thing with him is, it's very raw, and we got to kind of wait and see. But we've had a lot of very exciting down the depth chart type of guys, and Clifford has never, not that it matters, really. There's other things behind the scenes that coaches are looking for, but of all the guys that have been impressive, whether it be because of their legs or their arm or whatever, I don't want to say Clifford is the least impressive, but I mean he's down there. he's just fine. It's whatever. And so when I look at Elgersma and I say I don't think there's anything here, the question really is there enough for him to possibly overtake Sean Clifford? Sean Clifford has a big head start being a draft pick, but I mean, they also drafted a quarterback that didn't make it here for 30 seconds when they decided to move on. So, they love Elgersma's big arm, and putting on a performance like that, imperfect as it may have been, I think, going into this final preseason, I that might be kind of a, if you're Sean Clifford, I would just say, really need you to kind of step it up, especially since Elgersma has already overtaken. I shouldn't say overtaken. I don't know that for sure why they chose the order they did, but it's starting to feel like it's established that he may have already overtaken Sean Clifford. So I don't know if I'm already late to that assessment or what, but it's starting to feel real. You never know for sure unless the coaches say it, and they're not going to say that out loud, I wouldn't think. But it's feeling like a very real competition. Malik Willis, 6 of 14, 83 yards, 5.9 yards per attempt, 33 yards, his longest. Beautiful play down the right sideline. Unfortunately, the running back Marshawn Lloyd got a little nicked up. We'll get an update on that in a minute. 62.5 passer rating. Interestingly, looking at the Packers' 3 quarterbacks and the Colts' 4 quarterbacks, 0 touchdown passes. The only touchdown was Sean Clifford's rushing touchdown. Running backs, I should say rushing statistics here. The guy who got the most work was Israel Abanikanda. I'm pretty impressed by him, to be completely honest. I think he's looked quite good. I don't know if it was as impressive as maybe last week, but another guy that is just like, he's just here to kind of fill in a spot. He came in a little bit later as some injuries cropped up and we needed a body, and you don't put a lot of thought into it because of that reason. But then you start watching it and think, I don't know, man, this guy's, if nothing else, there's a lot of tough running. It might have been a 4-yard run, but it should have been a 2-yard run, and that matters. But Abanikanda by far had the most carries with 12 for 43 yards, 3.6 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. 8 yards was his longest. After that was another guy, Amar Johnson. Really liked him last week. I'm trying to think if there's anything that stood out a ton this week, and I don't think that there necessarily was. I think Abanikanda, too, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, didn't he have the muffed kickoff and then returned it for a bunch of yards? So even when I was trying to be mad at the guy where I was like, see, that was a mistake, he makes a huge play out of it. But Amar Johnson, 7 carries, 22 yards, 3.1 yards per attempt, and a touchdown. 9 yards was his longest. Next, most carries was Marshawn Lloyd. Again, he kind of had to drop out. Kind of like the announcers were saying, I was kind of hoping for that big play, that big opportunity, and it wasn't really there. There might have been 1 or 2 times where I was a little concerned about the vision, and by concerned, I don't mean panic like he can't do it. It's just sort of you want there to be the total package, and I had mentioned that early. The only thing I don't know about the guy is whether the vision will be there. You've got the ability to cut, you got the ability to burst, you got all the strength and the power he had early. He was one of those guys that lowered the shoulder and just knocked a guy clean out. Still went down shortly after, but I mean, that's impressive stuff. But there were a couple plays where it's like, why didn't you just cut there? I don't know why you kept pressing it up the field when there was a cutback lane right there. Just follow your guys. I don't understand. So that's a work in progress, and if he ends up being hurt again, I mean, that's becoming problematic. Yes, I'm aware of what we said about Jordan Love, but I mean, again, we'll have to look at the list of injuries he's had and just the inability to get on the field. I mean, at some point, you start to use the P word, prone. You know what I'm saying? But hopefully he's doing okay. Really like Marshawn Lloyd, and I believe he can bring a lot. But at the same time, you look at Emmanuel Wilson out there, who is just an absolute stud, and it's like we have our number one and number two. And if the Packers' plan is to force Marshawn Lloyd above Emmanuel Wilson for some reason I'll never understand, then I am so unbelievably sorry for saying this, Marshawn Lloyd, but I'm not, I can't let you do that. I don't want you to do that. I don't. Emmanuel Wilson is really, 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 really good. And as far as I'm concerned, our number one and number two are established, and I'm hopeful that Marshawn Lloyd can take a step and kind of slowly become the dude for when the time comes. But yeah, don't be touching Marshawn Lloyd's spot. Speaking of, did I finish here? Marshawn Lloyd, 6 carries, 15 yards, 2.5 yards per attempt. That was the lowest. Again, the blocking was a little rough. He was out there at the very beginning when the sledding was a little bit tough, so I don't 100% put that on him, but there were, I think, a couple opportunities he didn't fully maximize. Emmanuel Wilson, on the other hand, 5 carries, 33 yards, 6.6 yards per carry. What a freak. 11 yards was the longest. However, he did have the fumble, but he's so good. After that was Tyrion Davis-Price, who had 4 carries for 18 yards, 4.5 yards per attempt. 7 yards was his longest. After that was Sean Clifford with 3 carries for 19 yards, 6.3 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Chris Brooks, only 2 carries in the game, which I found very surprising. I thought, not that he's the flashiest, maybe you're looking at it and saying Abanikanda and Amar Johnson have already kind of established themselves above him. I mean, if nothing else, I thought Chris Brooks was a tough runner. He's a big physical guy, and I thought he was. Maybe it's kind of situational. They wanted him in short yardage situations, and they just didn't use him that much, or he's, working his way down the priority list. I don't know, but 2 carries is crazy. And 2 carries for 5 yards isn't going to help his case a ton, 2.5 yards per attempt. Now, on a small sample size, I don't know how you can super hold that against him, but still, you only have the opportunities they give you until they start making decisions. Algersmo with 1 carry for 4 yards. Receiving. I'm just going to go in the order that PFF has it, because bouncing around trying to keep track I'm going to miss somebody. Amar Johnson's at the top because they sort by fantasy football points, which is so stupid. But 1 target, 1 reception, 11 yards. No receiving touchdowns, but, rushing touchdown gives them more fantasy points. But always good to be able to add that to your repertoire. The receiving aspect, obviously, as a running back. Cornelius Johnson had himself, I won't say play of the day because I don't think so, but he had a really big play. Felt like it was kind of the turning point of the game a little bit. Real nice reception down the field, but 4 targets, 3 receptions, 41 yards, 10.2 yards per target, 13.7 yards per reception. 18 yards was his longest reception. Emmanuel Wilson, 2 targets, 1 reception, 32 yards on that 1 reception. Marshawn Lloyd, 4 targets, 1 reception, 33 yards. He had another really big one. Obviously, we talked about that before. The 3 incompletions, I kind of felt bad for Marshawn Lloyd. One of them might have maybe been his fault. I don't know if Malik wanted him to maybe sit down instead of keep running, but he had some bad balls thrown to him, or at least tough catches. The final one out of the end zone was uncatchable. The one behind him was uncatchable, but may have been his fault. The other one was not uncatchable, but it's one of those kind of circus catch type of things that, if it's Aaron Jones or something, you kind of expect that. I don't know how many running backs can routinely make that kind of a play. So I kind of felt bad because I knew his stat line was going to look like dog crap, and I don't know that a lot of it was his fault, but he had the huge play down the sideline, the biggest passing play of the game that kind of made up for that. Mecole Hardman, 4 targets, 2 receptions for 27 yards. 21 was the longest. Johnny Lumpkin, 3 targets, 2 receptions, 22 yards. Julian Hicks, 2 targets, 1 reception, 14 yards. John Fitzpatrick, 2 targets, 1 reception, 9 yards. Malik Heath, 3 targets, 1 reception, 9 yards. Ben Sims, 1 target, 1 reception, 5 yards. Isaiah Nayer, 3 targets, 0 receptions. I only remember one of the plays, and I don't believe it was his fault. I don't recall the other 2. but he's another semi-interesting guy that I think has a shot. One of those really late additions that you kind of write off, but you start hearing some pretty positive things about and think, the other concern with some of the other guys like Julian Hicks or whatever, sometimes you give guys the benefit of the doubt because they've been here. Heath, Hicks, those types of guys. And sometimes it's the exact opposite. The Packers will put a certain amount of time into you, and at some point they feel like they've gotten all they can get, and they kind of want to see what the new guy can do. See if maybe we can push past that ceiling. And especially with such a deep wide receiver room, if these next man up guys don't actually make the 53, they're probably not going to make the practice squad either. They would probably rather have the Cornelius Johnson, Isaiah Nayers on there to say, let's see what we can do with these guys. Will Shepard is a big one. Nayer was, Johnson. Where did Johnson? He was with the Chargers last year, but still relatively new to the NFL and certainly new to the Packers as compared to, some of the other guys that have been around. Hicks is a second-year guy, but is, been with the Packers now. I think Hicks is, this is kind of a conversation for another day, but since I'm talking about it, Hicks is tough because he's not quite here long enough to where you think, okay, we've seen all that we can see. There's probably still time that they could put into it. But without significant progress, they're probably looking at the new flashy tools that are actually out there making plays, like Will Shepard and Isaiah Nayer, and thinking we'd maybe rather have them on the practice squad. Especially when guys like Nayer are, 6'4", 220. It's going to be hard for Gutekunst to kind of turn that down. Heath is a really tough question because Heath is not just some practice squad guy. He is an actual 53 guy. But again, you got Dobbs, you got Golden, you got Reed, you got Savion Williams, who I think would make the 53, I would assume. You got Wicks. That's 5 guys. Hardman will be 6 guys. If after that we're looking practice squad, I'd have to look at the practice squad rules to see if he even would qualify. I think he does. It's pretty wide open. You can pretty much put anybody on the practice squad. But I don't know. I don't know if he would be a guy. Maybe for the sake of if we have injuries, we want to make sure we can call him up because we like him and whatnot. But that's a question. All right. Some defensive statistics here. Christian Welch led the team in tackles, 8 tackles, 5 solo, 1 pass deflection. So Simmons is kind of on the outs with a lot of Packer fans, and Christian Welch having a good day and a noticeably good day has not helped Simmons, at least with the fan base. I'm seeing a ton of people say simultaneously that I think Welch should be the guy instead of Simmons. Actually, he didn't lead the team in tackles. Isaiah Simmons did, but yeah, I think we're all kind of noticing the same thing. I don't really have an opinion on Welch. I'm not as enamored with one play, and I think you got Edgerrin, you got Quay, you got McDuffie, you got Tyron Hopper. I'm not going to overreact to Christian Welch having one maybe kind of good day, but I do think if they were to keep, for example, 4 linebackers, it should be Quay, Edgerrin, McDuffie, and Hopper would be my thought and preference. But Isaiah Simmons, 9 tackles, 5 solo. Deslin Alexander had 2 tackles, 2 solo, but also had the 1 sack of the game. That was kind of my critique this week as well as last week, which was the pressure seems to be there, but you got to get the quarterback down when you get back there. So many guys getting hands, arms, bodies near, on, around the quarterback, and they're able to step up, step through, step around. Again, this is not a panic thing. This is not some massive critique. It's a minor note for guys that largely are not going to be playing in the regular season. Kamal Haddon actually had 7 tackles, 4 of them solo. Jonathan Baldwin, 6 tackles. Bo Melton had 3 tackles, as well as a pass deflection. Nazir Stackhouse, 3 tackles and a pass deflection. It's interesting because I remember early on they were talking about, I think that got tipped at the line and it never really came up who it was. I'm guessing it might have been Stackhouse. Tyron Hopper, 2 tackles, 1 tackle for a loss. Warren Brinson, 1 tackle, 1 tackle for a loss. Tyron Herring with 2 tackles and a pass deflection. Micah Robinson with 3 tackles. Ballantyne 2, Mosby with 3, Oladapo with 1, but a pass deflection on top. Keith Randolph with 2 pass deflections. Okay, then. Interesting. Jamon Johnson with a tackle. Kingsley with 1. Carl Brooks with a pass. I guess there were a lot of deflections at the line. Pass deflection for Carl Brooks. Kalen King with a tackle. Special teams, Abanikanda, 5 kick return attempts, 120 yards, 24 average. 30 was his longest. Ballantyne with 1 for 22. You can figure out the math. Punt return, Mecole Hardman, 1 for 10 yards. Mark McNamee, 1 for 2 on field goals, 2 for 3 on extra points. They may just route his plane straight to Ireland. Daniel Whalen, 3 punts. All 3 were inside the 20. 148 total yards, 49.3 average. 59 yards being his longest. I'll tell you what, let's take our final break. We'll do team stats really quick. Then we'll go through some of Matt LaFleur's post-game stuff. I'm thinking pretty much everything we need to know should be wrapped up in that, but we'll see how that goes. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. All right, so as far as the total yardage, it was very similar, 356 to 360. Yards per play, the Colts had a slight edge, 5.8, 5.1. Penalties, I'm seeing a lot of Packer fans saying they're very upset because the Packers had 10 penalties. According to PFF, they had 12, so you're not upset enough. There were a lot of pre-snaps. It was actually relatively clean early, and then it was kind of like, oh, it looks like they doing much better this time around. It started to get a little bit sloppy, especially on that offensive line. I don't know exactly what all was going on, if it's just not lining up, if Belton's maybe lining up too far back, or what the whole situation is there. I don't really know. But they also had 11 penalties and actually had more penalty yards than we did. They had 11 penalties for 103 yards. We had 12 for 95. I think the Lions also had a ton of penalties. I mean, it's freaking preseason, man. This is how it goes. Packers with 3 touchdowns to the Colts 1. Packers with the only turnover. Passing, the Packers with a putrid 14 of 29, which is 48.3%. The Colts were 23 of 41, 56%. Had 197 yards passing. They had 267, although we had more yards per attempt. Each team with just 1 sack. Passer ratings, 71 compared to 76. Both of those pretty bad. On the ground, we had 40 carries for 159 yards, 4 yards per carry. They had 20 carries, 93 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. We had 24 touchdowns to their 22. Third down, we were 50%. They were 27%, just 3 of 11. We were 8 of 16 attempts. Fourth down, they were 0 for 1. Packers were 4 for 4. Red zone, they were 1 for 4. Packers were 3 for 3. This is the kind of stuff, too. I mean, you want to talk about discipline, you want to talk about all that stuff, and no, I'm not making a big deal about the backups, but, I mean, this kind of stuff is very important. These are the things that win you a game. These are the kinds of things you look at it and go, I don't know how we won because they were the better team. I'm not saying that about this game in particular, but that'll happen. What you'll find is third down efficiency, fourth down efficiency, red zone efficiency, that kind of stuff. The point is making it count when it matters. You can have a great drive, and then you can't convert on a third down, and now you got to punt. Or you can drive all the way down the field, and you get in the red zone, and then you got to kick a field goal. Packers were perfect on perfect on fourth down, perfect in the red zone, 50% on third down, which if you tack on the 4 fourth downs, which are failed third down attempts, right? It would be 8 of 12, which is to say 8 out of 12 times when they went for it on third and not fourth. Or 12 of 16 if you want to say how many times they converted compared to didn't on third or fourth down. Pass deflections, Packers had 8, Colts had 5. And that's about all that really matters there, I think. All right, on to Matt LaFleur's Q&A here. So first question coming out about the penalties. He says it's unacceptable. He did like the offensive line's effort overall, but they do have to be smarter, which is more or less what I was saying. I'm relatively, I shouldn't say I'm happy this time around. I'm there hasn't been anything blocking wise that I've been upset with. That may change tomorrow when I look at the PFF grades and find out somebody sucked and gave up a billion pressures or something. But the issue has just been you got to play smarter. Stop grabbing and stop freaking lining up wrong or whatever it is you're doing. Evaluation of Taylor Algersma's play said did many good things, led scoring drives, at times put the ball in jeopardy, but bailed out by penalties. Lots to like, but also lots to learn. Said they're still going to evaluate plays negated by penalties, which makes sense. I mean, why wouldn't you? They still ran the play. It's not about the yardage, it's about what you did and didn't do. Does winning preseason games matter? Yes, always value in competing and winning. Offense's 5-minute drive with Clifford was great, still missed some opportunities, underthrown deep balls, etc., etc. As I said, that was my counterpoint to the positive fans saying it doesn't matter. Well, then why are the coaches so mad when they lose? But I also think even that kind of takes it a little bit further in terms of I think the coaches should be more upset than the fans. It's your job to expect the best from your team. I mean, could you imagine what would happen if your guys lost and the coach just went in and was like, it's preseason, screw it, who cares? He needs to maintain a very competitive atmosphere where the goal for these guys is to go in there and smash them in the mouth and beat the crap out of them. That's the expectation. But he's expecting that out of guys that are not going to be on the team. So trying to take that reality that Matt LaFleur and the players need to have a standard that is we're going to go in there and win does not give you, the negative fan, the excuse to say, therefore, because they didn't win, now we're screwed on week one. That's not even close to being tied together at all. In no way. Question, what are your thoughts on wide receivers Hicks and Cornelius Johnson? Both have grown a lot from OTAs to now, competing well, making plays in practice and games. Injury updates on Omar Brown and Baron Sorrell. Apparently with Omar Brown, he, quote-unquote, it was a scary deal. Apparently had a chest contusion. He's going to be staying overnight. Observation, I guess. I'll do another search to see if we have any updates on that. Baron Sorrell, knee injury. They're going to evaluate it further when they get back to Green Bay. Question, is Marshawn Lloyd okay? Response, we'll see. So, as far as I can tell, no further updates on that quite yet. I'm sure by tomorrow, when we hear from Matt LaFleur, some of these pre-practice things, we'll get some further details, especially on Omar Brown. Well, I guess not especially on hopefully all of them, but hoping these guys are doing okay. I mean, Omar Brown had a heck of a run on things, man, with all the interceptions and whatnot. I don't know the odds of his making practice squad or whatever. I'd have to look at it. Probably relatively high, I would think. But rooting for him, obviously. Baron Sorrell is a big one. He's looked really impressive. Really high hopes for him. I'm not trying to talk all doom and gloom. I have no idea. He might have just tweaked it and he's fine, but you just hope for the best. And then Marshawn Lloyd, it's just, I don't know that he's been back more than a day at a time. Maybe two, in terms of, not including days off. If he returns to practice, does he do 2-3 practices before he gets hurt again? Again, hoping he's okay. Really excited about him, but every once in a while you get that where they just, Christian Watson and Luke Musgrave, certain guys where it's like, man, if they could just stay healthy, I think they got something great here. He's still very young. There's still plenty of time out in front of him, but he's looking at year 2 of. We've really not even seen the guy in 2 years. So hoping he gets a bounce back and can help to contribute. Several Colts also injured. Right tackle Braden Smith with a groin injury. Blake Freeland apparently fractured his leg, which is massive. I know they brought out the air cast and everything. That's bad. Rookie linebacker Jacob Phillips with a bicep injury. Cornerback Jonathan Edwards with a concussion. Safety/linebacker Hunter Wohler with a foot injury. So as bad as it feels for us, they had 5 injuries, including their starting right tackle, presumably their backup right tackle, who could be out for a very long time, and who knows about these other guys. But some things coming to I don't know if you'd call it a conclusion, but we're starting to kind of get a little bit more information that becomes interesting. Some of these competitions, again, are becoming interesting. The quarterback battle, I think the running back, RB4, assuming they keep 4, which they, I guess, may not, but that's certainly an interesting question. I think the assumption would be that it's Chris Brooks, but again, that whole 2 carries thing, especially with Banacanda playing really well. Amar Johnson looked real good. Kind of interesting. I mean, obviously, good players could get stashed. I think either one of them would be safe to make the practice squad if they just want to take an extended look at them, but don't maybe trust them to be 53 material. That could be the situation, but I don't know. I certainly wouldn't count either of those guys out. And I think blocking, special teams, receiving are massive. And that's probably going to be what it comes down to for those guys. Some other notes, this is more from other people kind of perusing through some of the articles that were written, some observations that they had. Jordan Morgan held his own versus the Colts starters, currently looking NFL ready. Anthony Belton, rough game, 4 to 5 penalties in the first half, illegal formations, false start, face mask, unnecessary roughness. Wiped out a touchdown and a big gain. Did improve in the second half with strong run blocking. And again, that's going to be the biggest thing for me. I don't think it's impossible for him to stop having penalties. I think the biggest thing is going to be, can you be a good blocker? That's what I care about. The penalties, I'm not happy about it, but I'm also not expecting him to start week 1. So I want him to develop into a great offensive lineman and be ready to be a solid backup. And hopefully by next year be one of the top tackles or guards or whatever he is in football. I don't know how that's all going to shake out. Maybe he starts this year, I don't know. But yeah, that's much more what I'm concerned about. Now, obviously, if this continues forever and it goes on until he's starting and he's good, but he's got a bunch of penalties that are screwing everything up, okay, fine. But again, I'm not going to panic about this from today. Especially with some of that formation stuff is emphasis where, he probably did some stuff in college that they're emphasizing here. Hitting a guy out of bounds, again, I'm not going to say I'm happy about it, but you like the aggression. It's one of those things you kind of dial it down over time. I don't think that's going to be a recurring issue with him. So you're looking at maybe a false start and a face mask, which it's not good, but, these are things that I would hope that you could improve upon. Again, if it was, hey, no penalties, but he sucks at blocking, I'd be much more concerned. Let's just put it that way. Interior offensive line struggles. Donovan Jennings allowed multiple pressures. Sean Ryan struggled at center. Jacob Monk shaky at right guard and center. Julian Hicks receiving some praise for having solid hands, along with Ben Sims and Cornelius Johnson. Even though their plays got wiped out by penalties, they still played well. Bo Melton looking good out in coverage. Kamal Haddon had a really bad day, targeted often. Again, we'll go back through this with the whole PFF thing, see what they saw and what their stats were. But these are observations that others had. Oladapo flashed some playmaking. I did notice that. I thought there was one play I was kind of annoyed with him about, but I saw him on several positive plays. He obviously had that pass breakup that was already charted. I'm excited about him. I mean, he's another guy that's kind of down the roster. I don't know how he makes it even to a starting role outside of like some sub packages or whatever, but he's a guy that is way more talented than where he is on the roster. There's very little pressure for him, I think. I mean, there's probably pressure because he desperately wants to start, but in terms of like, he's not, week 1, we need you to be out there with Xavier McKinney to be that other safety or you suck. He has the opportunity to really nice and slow, nice and easy, learn things the right way. And I'm excited about it. I mean, we'll see. He may be good, he may not, I don't know, but I'm excited about the opportunity that he has to really hone his craft in a low-stress environment. Again, the note of Christian Welch playing better than Isaiah Simmons, likely to make the roster over him. Simmons had his moment in the sun. Everybody noted the athleticism. And again, that wasn't super impressive even when I heard it, because it's kind of one of those, we know he's athletic. We get that. That's never been the problem. And seeing him lost out there, we had this with, was it Jalen Smith, the linebacker? I had mentioned that at the time. Really talented guy. I think Jalen Smith was a late first, early second guy. I really liked him coming out of college. He went to Dallas, and it just, for whatever reason, it just never worked. And he came here, and I was, relatively excited. You never know. Something could happen, but way too much talent to just never be able to make a team. So something's wrong, and you can see what that thing is when he gets on the field. I mean, it's just mentally, they just can't figure it out. They just can't quite, and I don't know how you gauge that, I mean, some people have just enough, and it's, not to call anyone stupid, because you got to be extremely smart to be able to handle the college game, but there's a step up, and you can look at a 40 time and say he's fast enough for college and fast enough for the pros. I mean, there's athletic things that you can look at and say athletically he's there, but how do you know if they're going to be able to process information fast enough when they get into the NFL? Some of these guys, they just get overwhelmed. They can't figure it out. They can't process properly. I don't want to fully officially drive the nail in the Isaiah Simmons coffin. I think he's incredibly gifted, but you kind of knew this coming in. As much as everybody gets excited about what he was supposed to be in college, we have to be able to look at the situation and say, can anyone explain why this person is here right now? How much has to go wrong for an early first-round pick to not even make it through the first 4 years, and I think beyond, the third team or something like that? Maybe I'm misremembering that, but it's not great. And there's always a chance, everybody's always got excuses. Well, that's because everybody did all these things wrong, and now, they played him at safety, he needs to be a linebacker, or they moved him to too many positions. Okay, if it was that easy, everybody would be doing it, right? I mean, if it's so easy for a person just kind of sitting on the couch who hasn't thought about Isaiah Simmons since he was in the draft to be able to diagnose the problem on the spot, why couldn't the other teams do it? I don't know that it's that simple. Maybe the other teams are just that stupid that everybody in the world knows it except this entire team of people across multiple teams. They can't figure it out. More than likely, there's bigger issues, and they keep trying to teach him, and he's just kind of not getting it. So, I still want it to work. I mean, if you can get a guy like Isaiah Simmons to click, if he can figure it out, you got something special. So I don't want to give up on him, but I think what we're seeing is the reason somebody that talented just can't. Nobody even wants to try. I mean, when he's it just looks so ugly. There were the plays from last week where he just looked lost in the middle of the field, was getting picked apart. When you go back and look at it, you see it's him. There was another big play I remember watching, and I'm it's one of those like, how did that happen? Why did nobody pick that up or whatever? And you see the safety presumably or corner or whatever way over the top. You see like the edge rusher kind of underneath, and then you look and there's a guy in the middle, and that in this case was Isaiah Simmons. And he starts like drifting in these random weird places. And it's like, do you not see that guy running right there? Like, I think the quarterback's covered. You probably shouldn't be worried about what's going on behind you. You should just worry about that guy right in front of your face. That guy go get him. And he just kind of was like, I don't know what to do. And you can just feel how much he seems lost out there, So, again, still rooting for him, hope the best, but it's sort of spiraling out of control. I don't have much of a thought on Welch. I don't dislike Welch, but I mean, it just kind of is what it is. He had a good day. That's good. I think more than anything, though, it just really highlighted where Isaiah Simmons is when people are screaming, we want Welch. It's not the best. And it's 2 weeks in a row where Isaiah Simmons has been like the biggest problem, at least as far as what everybody else seemed to notice. So, we'll see. Nazir Stackhouse stood out as a stout early defender, making a strong case for the 53. Again, we'll see if PFF agrees, but I love that that's been consistent. I know there were a couple times, I'm trying to not just watch the game and try to watch some of our players, and there was a couple times I watched Stackhouse, but not enough to get that firm of a feeling on it. But why don't we leave it at that? Let's see if I can't pull up this whole UFC fight tonight, since I don't have to do After Dark, and we'll leave it at that. You all have a good rest of your day. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Bye-bye.